goodness, 750 hours, it's an extra 20 bucks or less, probably less. Oh, you know, I just replaced the air cleaner. So that's what you're supposed to do with something that's called a replaceable element. All right, so I bought a newish phone. It's a model that's like 2 or maybe even 3 years old now because I will impulse buy tractors and farm equipment, or, you know, like drop thousands of dollars on metalworking tools at the drop of a hat if I can be convinced it's a relevant thing to do or worthwhile. But, you know, when it comes to spending the other 89 cents for the extra large fries or whatever, let alone the hundreds of dollars for a new cell phone, I'm like, I don't know about this. But anyway, where I'm going with this is the forward-facing camera on this phone. Like unlike my old cell phone, it doesn't look like Civil War footage when I try to make these videos talking to this thing. So now I can bring you guys more spontaneous videos. So I just went out and bought a whole bunch of hydraulic oil and other types of stuff, other types of fluids for the various tractors around here. And I needed a filter, a specific filter. Now, usually my regular viewers can probably say this word for word with me now, but the way that I like to buy hydraulic filters and engine oil filters, whatever, is you figure out the number for that filter, you cross-reference it over to a good aftermarket manufacturer. I really like Wix and Fleetguard. I'm not saying other ones aren't good. I'm just saying I know these two are good, and I can pretty much find anything for not very much money through them. And a filter that costs 25 bucks at the dealer, I bet I can get the Wix version for like $13 a piece on eBay or whatever. That's usually where I buy these from. So I'll buy them 3, 4, 6, 8 at a time, depending upon how many hours that machine sees of use. And I just have them, and it's fine. But one filter for one machine, and it is one of these machines. I'm not going to tell you which one to protect this dealer because I like them, and I'm pretty sure they're really not supposed to do what I'm going to tell you guys here. But I need a specific filter for this, and I go in there. Yeah, I tell the guy what I have, what I want. He's like, okay. So he disappears, and he comes back with an aftermarket filter from the machinery dealer, and he gives me this, and I'm like, I say something like, oh, you know, I was really kind of hoping you guys would have the proper, like, manufacturer filter. And he's like, yeah, well. And he asked me later, he was like, once you've been in skilled trades enough, when you just get around, when you're just around someone who's involved in that trade, you can just tell this guy's pretty competent. This guy knows what he's doing. And this guy was one of those people. He wasn't like a normal counter worker. It just happened that he was a service manager, whatever his thing said. He just happened to be the first one up to the counter. So, a really competent guy. And he's like, yeah, well, let me tell you what happened with this. And he put this very nicely. But basically what happened is their costs on the filters went up, so they increased the retail cost of the filters. And there was a sharp increase in people who just flat out refused to buy these things. And this is not an expensive filter. I bought that same filter pretty recently, and it was like $23 or something. And this is a pretty good size filter. This isn't like one of those tiny little inline, you know, gas filters that go on your lawn. This is like an almost coffee can size filter. And people just refused to buy them. So the dealership said, all right, y'all want to be cheap? We'll just sell you cheap aftermarket stuff then. And I think it'll be fine. That is a aftermarket manufacturer, what he gave me, that, you know, is supposed to be pretty good. But it's still frustrating when you go to specifically an equipment dealer and you try to buy something from there and you're like, I could have bought this on the internet for like a third less or whatever. But, you know, it is what it is. My point with this being that when I say, like, when you buy a piece of farm equipment, you have to go through everything. You can assume nothing, check every drop of fluid, everything on that machine, change all the fluid, all the filters, because you can assume nothing. And he's telling me, he's like, yeah, well, you know, the average customer that walks in here, again, I'm not he's sugarcoated it to be professional. I'm not going to do that. He's like, the average person who walks in here just wants the cheapest thing possible. You know, these tractors, there's a lot of them running around still. Nothing works on them. The lights don't work. The turn signals don't work. Nothing works, but they start, they run, they drive, and they just want the cheapest thing that they can put on this. They don't care if it's the factory filter. They don't care how good it is. It just has to be cheap, and it has to be on there, and that is absolutely it. And I was a little bit pleasantly surprised to hear this in a way, because my experience, and I said this jokingly in one video, but it actually it is proving more and more true, including today's story. Literally on a daily basis, it proves more and more true. You can talk to people and you can tell them why it's important to maintain specifically farm equipment. I'm not an automotive mechanic. I don't know how people take care of cars and trucks. Probably not much better, but maybe. What do I know? Specifically with farm equipment, I've said in a joking manner that you can talk to people, you can explain to them why it's really important they maintain their stuff, they change the fluids and filters, they don't push service intervals. When something small breaks, you just fix it and then it's done. And you can tell them why it's important to do this. You can explain to them that it's cheaper in the long run. All these things, it doesn't matter. They simply will not do it. And, I mean, it is that simple. They just won't. And so I really think that's probably the slight majority. I'd say that's, from my limited experience buying used farm equipment, like 10, 12 tractors at this point and a bunch of other stuff, I would say that's approximately 50% of the owners of farm equipment. I mean, they just won't. It really is that simple. Or if they do anything within that 50%, it's like an engine oil change every 5 years or so, and that is it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just the way I look at this, the point I was trying to make in this video, this specific filter is not something you change every 50 hours. I don't have the manual in front of me. I will bet you guys anything, this is like a 500-hour interval on this thing. And for people to straight up refuse to pay the extra $6 or whatever it is, you know, let's say it doubled in price. For people to refuse to pay the extra $23 for the proper filter for 500 hours of usable time. And really, it's not 500 hours. You know why? Because these old monsters, they all have one thing in common. Well, they did when they were new. That one doesn't anymore. They have the old mechanical hour meters on them. The newer tractors, like you turn the key and that hour meter's running full speed. These old birds, when they were new, it's not. Like, it's an hour, let's say 2,350 RPMs. I think that's the spec on this one. So if you're running at half that, like 1,300, 1,200, whatever, you know, you run it for 2 hours and it's 1 inch an hour. The manual was written with that in mind. So you might operate that tractor for 750 or 1,000 hours before you get 500 hours on the clock and you need to change this filter. And, you know, honestly, like, I don't know. I just want to say, if it's even possible to run a piece of machinery for 750 hours and not make enough with that to the point where you can't come up with an extra $23 or less to get the proper filter for that machine. What are you even doing? Like, literally, I don't mean to be disparaging. If it's even possible to work for that long on anything and not make enough money for the proper filter that goes in it, and I'm not saying it has to be a factory filter. The only reason why I go to the dealership with this is because I can't get a Wix or a Napa or a Fleet Guard filter for that specific filter on that specific machine. I don't know if I clarified that. Usually that's what I do. But still, 750 hours, extra $23. How many pennies? Is that even a penny an hour? I don't know. I'm terrible at math. But if you can't afford semi-proper stuff over 750 hours, you know, just like admit you don't care or reconsider whatever it is you're doing for that 750 hours. Like, I know that farming, you know, the prices for people who do it full time isn't that good, but goodness, 750 hours, it's an extra $20 or less, probably less. I don't know. Anyway, I feel a lot better now. Just a random video of the day. Just keep that in mind when I know you have to cough up the extra $20 or whatever. It kind of hurts, but think about it. You're gonna get so much use out of this, and you don't have to worry. And some people are like, you know, it's just a filter. It's just a coffee can, you know, shaped thingamajigger with the little pleated paper. How complicated is that? Very. Maybe not very, but more complicated than at face value. Because one, you take two filters side by side, and one's a 5 micron filter, and the other's a 15 micron filter, and you're not going to be able to tell the difference between those, but your hydraulic pump certainly can. And the other thing is, you say, oh, it's just a filter. No, that's like saying a welder is just a welder because, like, they're both box-shaped and they have a gun sticking out the front of them. Yes, but really no. You know, I just pulled, and my regular viewers saw this, a rank, disgusting power steering filter out of this thing that was collapsed. Like, the glue that holds that pleating to the metal thing on the top had come loose, or it had broken or something, and so the filter, like the pleating, opened up. So, you know, part of it's clogged, and I don't remember if that was all that clogged. I think the main problem was it just split open, so there's basically no filter in it at that point. So all that filth has been pumped through the power steering system on that thing for probably 5-10 years at a minimum, I'm guessing. There's no way to know. It's worth it to, you know, most of the time, it's cheaper to get like things from the good aftermarket filter manufacturers in advance than it is to buy the crappy ones locally. Like, that's what I've discovered. It's just what part of this is so difficult? 750 hours, an extra 20 bucks at most. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but evidently there's a lot of people who need to understand this concept. So I got another story. You know, since most people don't maintain things, I found the air cleaner in my case tractor full of the most rank, disgusting crap you've ever imagined. And so we got it out of there, and at some point I decided to search the internet, because I'm not really a mechanic. I'm trying to increase my mechanical aptitude here. So I'm like, you know, what are some problems that a diesel engine can have if it can't breathe? So I find a tractor forum where someone's telling a story about how a neighbor, an acquaintance of his or whatever, was having a fairly substantial oil leak around the turbocharger on his tractor. This is pretty good. I'm not going to say what model it was, because people will be like, if that was a such and such make, that wouldn't happen. But I'm guessing 140 horsepower or so. And so, you know, guy brings it over, dude puts a new turbo on, sends it home. A couple days later, phone rings, having the same exact problem. Pretty substantial oil leak right around the turbo. Tractor comes back, guy starts looking around, he finds that the air cleaner on this thing is pretty much completely clogged. Like, it is absolutely disgusting. And thus, the problem with this, evidently what happens is when the engine can't breathe, it creates, you know, too much intake vacuum, or whatever the technical term is. It starts sucking oil around everything that it possibly can, thus causing the turbo to leak. So, the guy puts a new air filter in it, problem completely goes away. I don't know about you guys, I would have really liked to have been a fly on the wall for that whole conversation when the dude came to pick up his tractor. Oh, so what'd you do? Oh, you know, I just replaced the air cleaner. So that's what you're supposed to do with something that's called a replaceable element!